Let's begin this lesson. Let's take a look at this little half sheet of paper here. It says notes solving two-step equations. So we're going to be doing both one-step and two-step equations. Now let's begin this lesson by understanding that an equation has an equal sign in it, right? Now what does that mean? That the left side of the equal sign is equal to the right side. In other words, an equation is like a balanced scale, right? So this is, I know it's going to look or sound ridiculous, but please let's draw like one of these scales. I know you might not have the same artistic abilities as me, but go ahead and try to do that right there. So this is a scale where, like, if I have one blue box over here, it's going to be off balance. I need to put another exact identical blue box over there. Or if I have two red triangles over here, I need two red triangles over there in order for this thing to remain balanced. There's an equal sign, right? So first thing, let's understand that an equation is like a perfectly balanced scale. The weight is the same on both sides, right? That's what the equal sign means. Now, if I did not have two triangles here, this thing would be off balance, right? If I take away one of these triangles, it would cause this side to go up and this side to go down. If I take one away, if I take this triangle away, let me erase that. It's no longer going to be balanced. It's no longer going to be equal. What's going to happen is it's going to tilt this way because this side's heavier, so there's no longer equality. Okay? So when you draw your scale right here in this little spot, please do whatever shapes you want, but make sure you have the exact shapes on both sides of the scale because it has to be equal. That's what an equation is. Go for it. If we read right here, it says steps to solving any equation. Step one is to simplify both sides of the equation. So what the heck does that mean? Simplify is what we've been doing last week, distributed property and combining like terms. So whenever you hear the word simplify, obviously it means do any math possible, but particularly when we say simplify, especially on equations, it's distributed property and combining like terms. So you want to do distributed property and combining like terms wherever it's at on an equation. Again, an equation has an equal sign separating the two sides. It's like a scale. So after you simplify doing distributed property or combining like terms, you isolate the variable. What does isolate mean? To get it by itself on one side of the equation. So get x by itself, or whatever letter you're dealing with. You want to get that letter by itself on the left side of the equal sign, or the right side of the equal sign. You want it by itself on one side of the equal sign of the equation. And remember, what you do to one side, you must do to the other. What do I mean by that? Well, again, I demonstrated earlier that if I take away this blue square on this side, what's going to happen?
The right side weighs more.
What right side weighs more, it's going to go like this. It's going to tilt, right? It's no longer going to be equal. So I could take away that blue square as long as I take it away over here on this side as well. That way it remains equal, right? Or if I wanted to, I could put two yellow balls right there as long as I put two yellow balls over here on this side, okay? You have to maintain the equality. So that's where the rule comes from. The number one rule on equations is you can do whatever you want to an equation as long as what you do to one side, you do it to the other side, all right? So you could multiply this whole side by 3 as long as you multiply this whole side by 3. You could divide this side by 2 as long as you divide this side by 2, right? You could add 10 to this side, which is going to cause it to tilt that way. But if you add 10 to this side as well, the equality is still there. So that's the number one rule of equations. And by the way, solving equations is the biggest part of semester 1 in algebra, all right? This is it. If you master solving equations, you should be able to pass this class, all right? So let's pay attention here. Let's understand, once again, how do we solve equations? The steps to solving any equation. Doesn't matter how huge it is, how ugly it is. Step 1, simplify both sides of the equation. How? By doing distributed property and combining like terms. Step 2, get that x by itself on one side. And how do you do that? To get rid of something, you must do the opposite, and what you do to one side, you do to the other side. So let me show you what I'm talking about here. We have this simple one-step equation. Where's the x at? Is it on the left side of the equal sign or on the right side? It's on the left side, right? Is it by itself? No, it's not. Yeah, there's a plus 3 right here. And again, let's actually walk through the steps. But even though we're not going to use step 1 is to simplify each side. So you look at the left side, x plus 3. Do I distribute anything right here on x plus 3? There's no distributed property. Do I combine like terms right here? No. Is there anything to do with that 11? No, I mean, what I'm saying is, on step 1 where it says simplify each side, the 11's simple. There's no math to do right there, right? So step 1 is done for us. And as a matter of fact, on this whole section, step 1 is going to be done for us, Samantha. Everything's going to be simplified already. Now imagine this: if I had an 11 plus 2, then that would not be a simplified equation. I would have to add 2 to both sides. But that's not the case right here. We're going to have some that require simplification tomorrow and the next day, and definitely on the quiz Friday. But today, we're just looking at simplified equations, and we want to get x by itself on one side of the equal sign. So I do not want this plus 3. I need to get rid of it by doing the opposite. Right? If there's a fire, you turn it off with what? Water. That's right, with the opposite value, right? So if you have a plus 3, you're going to get rid of it with a minus 3. That'll get rid of it. Now, what just happened there? I took away 3 from the left side, which causes this thing to get lighter on the left side, so it got off balance. So what do I need to do to the other side? Minus 3 to the other side also to maintain that balance. So I really have x. You see the x right there? It comes down. The equal sign comes down, and 11 take away 3 is 8, and I'm done. Because that's the goal of solving any equation, to get x by itself on one side of the equal sign. We got x by itself, x equals 8. Now what does that mean, that x equals 8? That means that this x up here is really what? 8. It says x equals 8. So this x right here is really 8. So if I wanted to, I could take this value of 8 and plug it in right here and think, okay, if this is really 8, is 8 plus 3 equal to 11? Yes, it is. That's called double checking. All right, so on equations, if you're not too sure if you did the right work, you could always take your answer, plug it back in, and then do the math, and it should give you a true statement. If you plugged in 8 right here and it gave you a 5 instead of 11, then you know your 8's wrong. Okay, so whenever you get an answer, you can plug it back in and see if it actually works. Let's take a look at this next one. Now, let's understand the difference between this first one that said x plus 3 equals 11. Right here, what does it say? It says negative 3 what? Yeah, but what is that? What's between times, right? It doesn't say negative 3 plus x. It doesn't say negative 3 divided by x. It says negative 3 with an x, which means that there's really multiplication between the two terms, right? Now, in order to get rid of something, you do the opposite, right? If there's a fire, turn it off with water. If there's multiplication, like there is right here, I need to get rid of that multiplication of negative 3. How do I do that? With division. The opposite value, or the opposite math operation. It's called the inverse operation. So to get rid of that multiplication, we're going to divide by putting a division bar. Everybody draw a division bar right there? And we're going to divide by that same exact value that we're multiplying by. We're going to divide by negative 3. Okay? And what I do to one side, I do to the other side. Because if I just divide the left side by negative 3, it's going to get lighter, it's going to be off balance. But when I divided the right side by negative 3, it maintains the equality, it maintains balanced. Anyhow, when we divide negative 3 by negative 3, that's a 1. So I have a nice 1x left over. The equal sign comes down. And over here, 12 divided by negative 3 is negative 4. There's your answer, x equals negative 4. Now let's say you're like, I don't know if I did that right. What could you do?
Negative 3 times negative 4.
Yeah, take that negative 4, plug it in right there where the x is at. So you have a negative 3 times negative 4, and you could use the calculators now. Negative 3 times negative 4 really does equal 12. That's called double checking. It works. Now, on every one of these problems, I explain the thought process on it, right? Right here on this one, we must get the x by itself. If you don't want the multiplication of negative 3, get rid of it by doing the opposite. What's the opposite of multiplication? By dividing by that same negative 3. So on these examples that we're doing, the explanation's there for you. That way you could study it at home and ace this section. We will have a quiz this Friday on solving these types of equations, all right? So let's practice. Let's get a good grade on that quiz. And like always, Thursday night, we're going to have an Edmodo check. Hopefully you guys start doing that to start bringing up that grade. Some of us should have an A in this class, and unfortunately, because of that, it's at a B, right? That's not cool. It's really easy. Let's start logging in on Edmodo and getting that credit. Let's move on to this next one. Now this one's a little different than what we're doing today because this is actually a two-step equation, and today we're only focusing on one step, but I want to give you a little taste of solving two-step equations. Now let's begin with this. What's the most important thing on solving an equation? To get what by itself? X. It's kind of like X is the movie star, yeah? This is what you want. You want to get that movie star by himself, right? You don't want a bunch of people around you. So this is kind of like the movie star's buddy. Pretty cool to know somebody that's a friend of a famous person, right? And this guy, this is a loner. This is the bum at the corner. You don't care about this guy, right? So that's how you determine which one you get rid of first, right? So movie star's buddy, bum at the corner, get rid of the bum at the corner, all right? How do we get rid of this guy? By doing the opposite. The opposite of -5 is +5. Okay, now what did I just do? I just added 5 to the left side. It got really heavy on the left side. What do I need to do to the other side to maintain balance? Same thing. Add 5 to the other side so it'll stay balanced. So let's add 5 right there. What do I have now? I have this -2x left over. I'm just going to bring it down. I'm going to bring down the equal sign. 13 plus 5 is 18. And now I'm down to my final step. We still need to get rid of the movie star's buddy, right? Yeah, by doing the opposite. Now, some people see that -2 and they want to add 2 to get rid of it, but that's incorrect because we are not subtracting 2 right here. It's really saying -2 times x. So the opposite of multiplying by -2 is to divide by -2. So let's divide by -2. And we will have x equals -9. There's your answer. Once again, if you wanted to, you could take that -9, plug it right here. -2 times -9, positive 18. 18 take away 5 really is 13. We're absolutely positive that that answer, x equals -9, is 100% correct. All right, now let's definitely take a look at this one. So many people freak out when it comes to fractions on equations. The way to get rid, oh, I shouldn't even say that. Let me say this. Having fractions in equations is super easy. It's not complicated at all. Why not? Because you could get rid of fractions, right? Now, the thing with equations is you could do whatever you want as long as you do it to both sides of the equation. So if we think about what a fraction really is, a fraction is really a division problem, all right? So what does it say here? It says 2 divided by 5 times x. Now, imagine, wouldn't this be a lot easier if we did not have that divided by 5? Yeah. If it just said 2x, that would be simple, right? You just divide by 2 on both sides. But because it has that divided by 5, it's a fraction and people get scared. So you could get rid of the divided by 5 by doing the opposite, which is what? Multiplying by 5. That'll cancel out. Now, I multiplied the left side by 5. The left side's really heavy right now. It's off balance. I need to do what? Multiply the right side by 5 to maintain that balance, that equality. So what you do to one side, you must do to the other. So what we have here is 2x equals -20. And now we need to think, how do I get rid of this 2 times that's in front of the x? Divide by 2, divide by 2. X equals -20 divided by +2 is -10. And there's your answer right there. Too easy. Now, once again, these are this one right here is hold on a sec. So looking at this last one, it is a multi-step problem, and today we're only doing one-step problem. So if you understand this, you're way ahead of the game. Again, x is the movie star. This nasty fraction's the movie star's buddy. This guy's the loner, the bum at the corner. You don't want this guy, so let's get rid of the -5 first by doing the opposite of -5, which is +5. If I add 5, it's going to be off balance. It's too heavy on the left side. I need to do what? Add 5 to the right side to maintain that balance. So whatever I do to one side, I must do to the other. What do I have left? I have that nasty fraction, -2/3 with an x. The equal sign comes down, and 1 plus 5 is 6. But there's a fraction there. What do you do when you have a fraction? Multiply by the denominator, right? That comes from understanding that this says 2 divided by 3. And if you don't want that divided by 3, all you have to do is put times 3. Because that'll get rid of the division of 3 because they're inverse operations. And what you do to one side, you must do to the other. So that 3 right there cancels with that 3. There is no more fraction. It's simply a -2 with an x equals 6 times 3 is 18. That's right. Now the final step here would be to do what? Divide by negative 2. Divide by negative 2. You will have x equals negative 9. Ta-da. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. All right. I did all those for you. Let's have you practice on this other slip of paper that I'm going to give you. Okay? So on these, again, number 1, you want to get rid of that plus 2. You're going to get rid of that by doing the opposite, minus 2. What you do to one side, do to the other side. X comes down. X equals what? Negative 10. Yeah, negative 10. You owe 8, you owe 2, you're going to owe 10. And again, you could use calculators. Number 2, this really says negative 2 times x. So to get rid of that multiplication of negative 2, you're going to do the opposite of multiplication, which is what? Division of that same exact negative 2 value. That cancels out. The x comes down. The equals comes down. A negative divided by a negative is a positive 4. There's your answer for number 2. Number 3, ooh, it's a fraction. What do I do? Multiply by 3. That'll cancel it out. But what I do to one side, I must do to the other. So I will have the x left over equals negative 18. I'm done. Last one. This one's so confusing that it's so easy that people are going to get confused. See, a lot of people see that fraction, they're like, I need to get rid of that fraction. No, you don't. What's the whole goal of solving an equation?
Oh, switch it. It's just going to be x and negative 2.
That's right. The goal is to just get x by itself. Now notice there's a negative sign in front. You don't want that negative sign. So you could get rid of it by changing the sign to a positive x. And what you do to one side, you must do to the other. So your answer will be x equals negative 2/3. Or you could also say, Jahadri, that you want to multiply both sides by negative 1. Right? So if you multiply both sides, if you say multiply by negative 1, multiply by negative 1, you're going to get your answer positive x equals negative 2/3. So again, that one, you want a positive x, you don't want a negative x, just change it to a plus and change this sign because what you do to one side, you must do to the other to maintain the equality. All right, I've done those 4. You guys do these. Go for it. There are the answers. Number 1 is 5. Number 2 is 3. Number 3 is 32. Number 4, number x. Number 4 is x equals 5. And now this final portion of this slip of paper is multi-step equation or 2-step equations. We don't have 2-step till tomorrow, I believe. Today it's 1-step, but we might as well get used to this. Number 1, what do I get rid of first? The multiplication of 2 or the addition of 3? 3, all right? Get rid of that plus 3 by doing the opposite. Minus 3, 2x equals 5 take away 3 is 2. Final step. Divide by 2. Divide by 2. X equals 1. There's your answer. How about you guys try number 2 right now? I want to pause it and then I want to show you the answer. Ladies and gentlemen, as you can see, the work right here, I got the answer x equals negative 4. Again, I got rid of the 4 by doing minus 4 to both sides. I ended up with the new equation, negative 3. It comes down. The equals comes down. 16 take away 4 is 12. I need to get rid of the multiplication of negative 3. That's why I divided both sides and got x equals negative 4. So there's the answer, number 3, x equals 4. And I want to explain number 4 because this one's interesting. When you subtract 4, you will get negative 2x equals nothing. So the question is, how do I get rid of that negative 2 that's being multiplied by x? I want to divide by negative 2 and divide by negative 2. That way my answer is that x comes down negative or 0 divided by any number. If you have nothing and divided by anything, it's still nothing. So 0 divided by anything is still 0. So that's your actual answer. Let's say you were kind of not sure about that answer. You could take that 0, plug it in. Negative 2 times 0 is 0. And isn't 4 equal to 4? Yes, it is. So you've double checked it. The correct answer is 0. Now, let me just show you our homework. They're all 1-step equations. On number 1, how do I get rid of that minus 8? Plus 8. On number 6, I have a minus 14 out here in the front. How do I get rid of that minus 14? Plus 14. Let's just jump over here. On number 11, this is multiplication of negative 13. You're going to divide by negative 13 on both sides. And of course, you could use a calculator. On number 16, actually, these might be worth discussing. Number 16, what's the goal to get a by itself? I need to get rid of this.
Just multiply by 15.
Yeah, just multiply by 15. So when you multiply by 15 here, that'll cancel out. You will have a by itself, but it's off balance. Right now, you still need to multiply by 15 on this side. So you could multiply top with a top and then divide by 5, or you could divide first and then multiply whatever's left over. I do have a 15 up on top divided by 5 on the bottom. What's 15 divided by 5?
3.
So what's left? 4 times 3 up on top over 1. That's just your answer. A equals 12. So don't let fractions scare you. You can get rid of any fraction. You get rid of any fraction by multiplying by the denominator. Both sides, that is.